of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. I am joined by the man with one of the best throws that I've ever seen, Nicholas Doetkott. Nick, how are we doing today?
Not too bad, man. You got that nice haircut, too.
Yeah, well, only because I had to remind you before the podcast that I got it. You didn't even notice. We've been doing this for how long now, and you didn't even notice.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, you should be sorry. It's unfortunate, really. So we're just going to get right into things here. Some baseball stuff is kind of coming back up again. First off, now this is something that I didn't have written on here because I'm just now thinking about it. So I don't know if you heard it or not. But supposedly, Carlos Correa did an interview with Ken Rosenthal in The Athletic. I don't know if you looked at that article or not. Essentially, I was reading it today and it was kind of interesting. And pretty much, there's a lot of stuff that we've heard before. But then he was going to Jose Altuve and pretty much saying how Altuve was like the only player that supposedly didn't use the banging, and he apparently got upset. And like the video after he hit the walk-off home run after Chapman where he didn't want to rip his shirt off? Correa said that supposedly it was because his wife didn't like him with his shirt off, and also apparently because he had a bad tattoo or something on his collarbone that he didn't want people to see. Like, okay, whatever. Oh, man. I just thought that was kind of funny. I liked Jose Altuve, Correa, those guys. They're not credible anymore to me.
I just think I didn't watch I didn't read up or watch a lot of what happened with the interviews recently, but I seen a little bit here and there about the owner of the Astros interview? Oh my gosh.
Oh, terrible.
That was awful.
That's terrible.
He pretty much started off saying we don't think it impacted the game, and then 30 seconds later, well, he didn't say it didn't have any impact. It's like, you just did.
Yeah.
You just said it did.
It's frustrating, and I was talking to one of my buddies, and at this point, I think I would much rather, like, just kind of about like the buzzers thing. They keep asking about the buzzers, and they say, oh, well, the commissioner's office didn't find anything. I think I would much rather have every single one of them lie and just say, no, there was not any buzzers, versus them saying that the commissioner didn't find anything. It goes back to the old, oh, well, let's say I just murdered 15 people, but, and then the police ask me, somebody asked me about it, and they say, oh, well, the police report didn't find that I murdered 15 people. It's like, well, okay, whatever.
Who cares what the report says? What happened, dude? You're the one who knows.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just, and now, I don't know if you listen to the Starting Nine podcast that Barstool Sports puts out. They have great content, so they're pretty much talking about the same thing. So it's hilarious. But oh well.
Well, I seen today, which and I get this, but Dusty Baker is like concerned about how they're going to be treated this year because obviously they're.
Heck yeah, I'd be concerned. I wouldn't be surprised if every single one of them gets plunked.
So I think Baker's kind of asking for help in that, which I get that because it's gonna be nasty. But,
oh, it is. I think it's deserving though.
Well, I'm not saying you got to cheer for the Astros, but it doesn't mean you just go and beat them every time either. I've never been for that. But speaking of that, I didn't catch it really because it was just the ESPN was on in the background yesterday, and I just kind of looked up and seen on the bottom of the screen it was something about Alex Wood. He still pitches for the Dodgers, right?
I believe
he did.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was Alex Wood saying like if this were back in the day, they'd be plunked every single time. I'm like, oh boy, Alex Wood don't care.
No.
And Bellinger's pretty upset about it.
Yeah, he went off too.
And rightfully so. I get it. Like I said, a lot of times these cases, it's like, well, yeah, they cheated, but it doesn't necessarily mean they wouldn't have won the World Series. But in the Dodgers case, you got a legitimate argument, like you mentioned in the past. Like they might have won that World Series.
Yeah.
And Houston doesn't seem very apologetic for it. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
If you at least seem pretty sincere about it, it's one thing. But nobody seems to be very apologetic about it. They're just trying to cast the blame elsewhere, or claim there isn't any reason to be blamed in the first place.
I will say this, though. As much publicity as baseball needs, I think this is good for baseball. More people are going to be watching this year.
Well, and that's why. So I watch First Take every once in a while. I'm not a huge fan just because I don't know. I hardly ever agree with Kellerman and Stephen A. whatever. But Kellerman had a thing. He said this is good for baseball, and a lot of people like blasted him, saying, "Are you insane?" But his thing was kind of like, any publicity is good publicity, and I kind of agree with him and what you just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, this isn't a good look for Houston or necessarily baseball in general, but it's putting them on the map. Like they never get they don't even get talked about when they should in July when it's the only thing going on.
Yeah.
They got talked about. MLB was getting talked about last month, like darn near Super Bowl time, and I'm like, wow, you see, they're talking about baseball now. So I think Kellerman has a point.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we can move on from that. Get away from some non-sign stealing stuff here. So we'll just get into it. So, Boston Red Sox named manager, interim manager. It's going to be Ron Roenicke. Been around a while. He was with Milwaukee for a little bit. Had some successful seasons there. For the Red Sox side of things, though, and that's another thing too. That's kind of interesting now. Like Alex Cora also is out of a job, but kind of reading the reports and stuff, it sounds like maybe Alex Cora wasn't really the one that was involved much too.
I mean, it's hard to know who's right and whatnot, but from what I've heard recently, it sounds like it may not have been Cora much. It sounds like Beltran's getting a lot of talk though.
Yeah,
they think Beltran had a lot to do with it.
But anyways, Ron Roenicke, like I said, guy that's been around the game for a while. Boston Red Sox. If you're a fan of the team, how do you like this signing if you were to be them?
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know that much about Roenicke besides the fact that he was the manager for the Brewers, but he had success with Milwaukee. I'm kind of surprised they got rid of him when they did. I mean, he had success there in Milwaukee for the most part without a stud of a roster behind. I think the Red Sox need at this point just you're ready to win, so get a guy who's been there before and see what happens. I don't mind it.
Yeah. That's what I like about these Red Sox and Astros hirings with Dusty Baker and Ron Roenicke. It's two guys that have been around, especially Dusty Baker too.
That's the main thing. Yeah, you get a veteran guy who's been there.
Veteran guy that's been around the league for a long time, knows kind of how to handle and deflect those things. So, it'll be interesting to see how they do this season with it.
I see the title on Roenicke, like Baker is the actual manager. I see the title on Roenicke is still like interim. I believe. Like I don't know. You think they're just gonna? I mean, you think they want him to be in limbo like that, or are they just going to say, all right, we're going to call you interim and decide after this season, or you think they're just going to say after a month, all right, you're the dude. You're not interim anymore. Yeah,
I can't imagine that he'd be here more than one season, be there in Boston for more than one season. Maybe it's one of those things where if he does really well and the Boston Red Sox are a playoff team, then maybe he sticks around. I don't know.
So barring a really good season, you'd think he's truly an interim coach. He's just here until they can figure out what they're going to do next year.
I think if it was one of those things, if they would have just said, like he's our manager, then I would say no. But the fact that they labeled it an interim manager and this, spring training has barely started, and it just makes me think that at the very most he's here for a year, maybe barring, huge success from Boston. That's my take at least.
Yeah. Okay. I think you might be right on that.
Yeah. But anyways, we'll have to check in and see how they're doing with Roenicke there. Padres and Rays have another trade. Rays are a team that it seems like, every month or so, they're always pulling off a trading, guys, kind of big name guys for them. Maybe not in baseball for sure, but the
mainly
Padres,
it's because they don't want to ever pay anybody.
Yeah, you talk about a money ball team, Oakland Athletics and Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, it works. They win. Good for them.
But they probably win World Series if they actually spent a little more.
But anyways, so the Padres traded Manuel Margot and Logan Driscoll to the Tampa Bay Rays for Emilio Pagan. Margot is a guy that has had some success with San Diego, and obviously now that Tommy Pham got traded earlier from Tampa Bay to the Padres, they need some help in the outfield now because Pham was a huge part of that outfield for Tampa Bay. Margot, I like this a lot. He's a guy that, solid defender. He's not going to light up the scoreboard with his hitting, but he's, certainly isn't a slouch out there at all. So you can't go wrong with that if you're Tampa Bay.
I mean, I like this more for San Diego. So I was just looking up this trade, and I got ESPN.com, and they were showing Margot's numbers, and I'm like, obviously I knew who Margot was, but I didn't realize he only batted .234. I mean, that ain't very good.
No.
He did have a 304 on base percentage, which means he walks a lot, and he is a great defender. But you're Tampa Bay. You already got Kiermaier in the outfield, who's not that great of a hitter, but one of the best defensive outfielders in the league. You don't need to have a bunch of outfielders who are good at defense and can't hit. I mean, maybe. I mean, they do have a good pitching staff, but you need some offense in that lineup, and I just don't think Margot's going to give that to you. Whereas Tommy Pham did, and they got rid of him. And Pagan, I didn't realize he's 28, which not that that's really old in baseball, but I did think he was younger than that. He is 28, but he had a 2.31 ERA last year.
Yeah.
And he was a very, very good reliever for them last year. And now, granted, they have plenty of pitching, and I'm always fine with the Rays getting rid of pitching because they just seem to pick up a guy up the street and turn him into a good pitcher. So I think they'll be able to make up for Pagan. I just don't think the return they got back is necessarily that great. I'm not huge on Manuel Margot. And but the Padres, I like that addition. They got Pagan to go with that already good bullpen. Kirby Yates, the leader of that pen. And I think the Padres should have if they can just get a lead going into the 7th inning, they should right now. That's the question. Can they get that lead?
Yeah.
But I like this for the Padres a lot more.
I do like it for the Padres too, especially for the fact that they're getting pitching. You can never have too much pitching. That's my motto that I like to live by, obviously, looking at teams. I think the more pitching you have, the more depth that you have with your bullpen, with your starters. I mean, you definitely can't go wrong with that. I will say for Tampa, though, they've had some good teams in the past. Obviously, they made it to the World Series in 2008 against the Phillies and lost. They've always had, some decent offensive players, like Carl Crawford, Evan Longoria in his prime, Ben Zobrist, Carlos Pena, yep. B.J. Upton when he was there, obviously a really, really solid player as well, too. Jason Bartlett, that's another one, too.
Bartlett. Piranha.
The Piranha, yeah. It's one of those things that was as good as their hitting has been, it seems like the staple of their franchise has always been solid pitching. The pitching has always been solid, whether it's been David Price, Kazmir, Chris Archer when he was there, a number of guys, Fernando Rodney in the pen, when he was there for a little bit. They've always had solid pitching, which has always guided their teams, like you said. I mean, they're an absolute pitching factor. Like you said, could pick up a regular Joe, greeter at Walmart and say, hey, come pitch for us on Sunday, and he'll be ready to go. I don't know. I do like it. I mean, for both sides, though, nonetheless, I mean, Tampa probably need another outfielder. Obviously, when you have Kiermaier out there and, Austin Meadows also in right field, I'm not sure their left fielder. It's probably Tommy Pham. We'll have to see how this goes, but nonetheless, I do like it for the Padres. Again, another NL West team that's doing something that's not the Colorado Rockies. No shock there. So good for them. It'll be nice to see that bullpen whenever we play them. Oh, man. This is frustrating. The Rockies have spent $0 this offseason. I mean, we've signed a bunch of minor league contracts. No wonder Nolan wants to leave. We don't do anything to help him.
Right.
Oh, well. I should just be used to it by now.
We're used to it in Minnesota, too. This is the first time the Twins have ever tried to do anything in their history.
Well, speaking of the Twins, that trade did end up going through. The Dodgers, so essentially it was separate trades, so it wasn't all the big deal like we saw before. It was just separate transactions. So the Dodgers traded Kenta Maeda and cash and a minor league player to the Twins for Brusdar Graterol, Luke Raley, and the 67th pick in the upcoming draft. You ended up getting a guy that you needed, obviously pitching. Apparently there's some incentive stuff in the Dodgers as to why Maeda was kind of upset there. Was coming out of the bullpen a lot, kind of wanted to start. So hopefully for Minnesota, obviously, you're getting another arm, another solid arm. That should work out. Do you think you guys are going to miss? I mean, obviously, it's hard to say you miss a guy when he only played like 11 innings last season for you guys. But do you think not having Gratterall on the team is going to affect you guys negative at all?
No. I mean, the guy ends up being this amazing starting pitcher, then yeah, but I'm not sure if he's even going to be a starting pitcher in the league.
Yeah.
I think that's the main concern the Red Sox had first place. And let's just say he does become a good pitcher somewhere else, it doesn't necessarily mean he would have in Minnesota. I've seen over and over and over and over and over and over again good pitching prospects in Minnesota, and they never pan out because I think it's something to do with our coaching and pitching coaches specifically when they're coming up, and it never pans out. But the Twins need starters, and it sounded like Gratterall was only going to be a reliever, at least for the time being. And right now, when you're ready to win, Gratterall in the bullpen's not going to be as important to success as getting a Maeda would be. So no, I don't think he will be that missed.
It's time. I mean, the guy's got a 100-mile-an-hour sinker, one of the most electric arms in baseball, and he's barely played in major leagues so far. I'm interested to see how he does for the Dodgers this season. I'm kind of with you. I think he's going to come out of the bullpen. I don't see him starting much. But the Dodgers they're going to be getting a phenomenal player, and I'm pretty scared to see him closing out games against my Rockies this season because the Rockies, like I mentioned, didn't do anything. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but
you did. And as you mentioned before, Maeda being upset about bullpen and whatnot, I think Maeda's a great starter, but for the Dodgers, they don't necessarily need Maeda to be successful. They have Walker Buehler and Kershaw, and they still got Urias. I don't know if they plan on starting him, but they got plenty of starters. I know they did just lose Hill too, but trading Maeda away, who's just your average pitcher, for a prospect who potentially could be really good, is a good trade for them. And I think this is a classic good trade for both teams. I think this is a great trade. We're getting what we need, and the Dodgers are getting rid of someone who don't necessarily need for the hope of a guy who could potentially be really good.
And Dodgers did have some inconsistencies in their bullpen last season too. So getting Gratterall, that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, and even Jansen, who's been their guy for years now, he even struggled last year.
Yeah, former catcher Kenley Jansen, might I add.
I actually didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, you learn something every day on the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast, folks.
Yeah. Oh, and also throw in there, I believe, maybe you did mention it, Twins got $10 million also.
Okay.
But the one part that kind of sucks, the original trade, the 3-team trade, the Twins were not getting rid of a 67th overall pick. Well, they ended up having to get rid of the 67th overall pick in 2020 to the Dodgers. And, I mean, I'm not huge on draft picks unless it's like a first-round pick in the NFL or like a top 5 pick in NBA. But regardless, the 67th overall pick, I mean, that's a fairly good pick. You don't want to have to lose. And the fact that we had to get rid of it where we previously wouldn't have kind of sucks. But we are getting $10 million back, so that's nice. I mean, that's a good chunk of change right there.
Absolutely.
And I also read that Maeda got $1 million from the Dodgers for being traded. So there must have been something in his contract to do something with a bonus if he got traded. Kind of weird, but
good for him, I guess. Then congratulations, you got traded. Here's $1 million.
Right. Sorry to get rid of you, but here's $1 million parting gift, just so you're not that mad at us.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that was bad. Yeah, so no beef going forward, right? Here's $1 million. It's probably chump change for him. $1 million. Heck, I'd take $1 million 15 days out of the week.
But like I said, I think this is a good trade for Bolton. I think Maeda, this is a good opportunity for him. He was a good starter in LA, and they used him plenty, whether it was starting or bullpen. But he was like the 4th guy. Well, Minnesota, he's technically going to be probably our 3rd in the rotation, but he's right there with Odorizzi. I mean, not maybe last year Odorizzi, but I don't think Odorizzi is going to repeat that. But Maeda's going to be one of the staples of our rotation, and if they make the playoffs, he's probably going to be starting in playoff games. So Maeda is going to be a lot more important to the Twins than he was to the Dodgers.
Absolutely. So we'll have to check back on that one. So the Red Sox did end up doing the Mookie Betts trade to the Dodgers as well too. So the Dodgers also obviously ended up trading Mookie Betts and David Price to the Dodgers for Connor Wong, Jeter Downs, and Alex Verdugo. Apparently, like I said, I'm still not. It sounds like this Wong and Jeter Downs guy are pretty good, from what I've been hearing from the Dodgers side of things. Personally, Mookie Betts, my opinion, top 3 player in baseball. I mean, at the very most, I'd say top 2, right behind Mike Trout.
Sorry to interrupt you, but so on Facebook, I think it was like the MLB fan page or something like that has been going through like their top 100 lately.
Right.
And I just seen last night the top 10, and they had Betts 4th. They had Trout, Yelich, Bellinger, Betts. So they had Betts at 4.
Okay. Yeah.
Which puts the Dodgers at 3 and 4.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, nonetheless, at the very least, top 5. Personally, I think, top 2, right behind Mike Trout for sure.
I would put Yelich above that. I think he's proven now that he's had 2 really dominant years in a row. I think he's proven that he's.
Betts is just, oh man, I don't know. For me, Betts, like you talk about a 5-tool player, like that's a 5-tool player. Like not to say Yelich isn't, but I just think Betts has the power, has the average, has the fielding, and he's got a cannon, an absolute cannon for an arm in the outfield there.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, let's just get this out of the way. Like you said, he's like top 5. Maybe if you throw pitchers in there, you can switch it around, but he's really good. So it's not like whoever we put above him, Betts or Yelich.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the other one's not that good, but I personally would put Yelich above him. I know you mentioned the 5-tool player, which Betts definitely is, but so is Yelich. Yelich is a Gold Glove outfielder, and I think he stole like 20-some consecutive bases last year. He's a hell of a base stealer too.
Yeah.
But Betts is known around baseball as darn near the best defensive outfielder in the game. But like I said, Yelich is a Gold Glove winner also, and he actually has a higher. He's a much more of a power hitter than Betts is. I mean, Betts hits 30, but Yelich can hit like 50.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, I mean, we don't got to talk about that. We agree that he's one of the best players in baseball. For me, if I'm a Boston Red Sox, I'm not happy with this. I really am not.
No.
You talk about a guy, Mookie Betts, who probably is the best player that's been on the Boston Red Sox that has added more to the game since, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even say David Ortiz. David Ortiz was a one-dimensional player. All he did was hit. I think Mookie Betts adds more than David Ortiz did.
I mean, Ortiz is one of the more iconic Red Sox of all time because he's won 3 World Series. He was great in the playoffs, and he's David Ortiz, but he wasn't as good as Mookie Betts was.
No. I think you'd have to go back probably 20 plus years before you could find someone even comparable to Mookie Betts. It's hard. I mean, he's a generational talent, and no doubt about it. He hasn't been in the league for a long time. Generational talent.
I mean, Mookie Betts is 26 years old. He's already got a WAR of 42.0.
Yeah.
BaseReference.com.
And he has an MVP in a World Series under his belt.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know.
But I discussed who won and who lost, although I think it's obvious. But yes, you mentioned the Red Sox fan, how you wouldn't be happy. Like, I would not be happy at all. Now, before I blast Boston and the general management, I mean, I would like to know, maybe Betts told them, I'm not going to resign. But I find it hard to believe. Like, I'm guessing he just wanted a lot of money. And well, if you're the Red Sox, you're the Boston Red Sox. You're the second most iconic team in baseball, probably behind the Yankees. You're one of the best teams in baseball over the last decade and over the last 5 years. You just won a World Series 2 years ago. You missed the playoffs last year, but you weren't that bad of a team. You have a great roster, and you have all the money you can want.
Yeah.
Give it to Betts. You just said he's he's a once in a generation player. He is. He's one of the best players of baseball, and he's 26 years old.
Yeah.
I don't care what he wants. Give it to him. Bryce Harper is nowhere near as good as Betts. He ain't even close.
Not even close.
He just got all sorts of money from Philly. Give him the money.
Yeah.
Gosh sake. Now you're going to be second fiddle to the Yankees. I mean, I still think, Red Sox may be surprised, but now they're definitely the second fiddle of the Yankees. And the Rays are probably going to be better than them for a couple years now, too. I mean, losing Betts is huge. And even if you didn't think you could get him, I'd rather have 4 or 5 months out of Betts and you trade him at the deadline, or 1 more year of Betts and just see what happens and lose him for nothing in this trade.
Yeah. 100%. Kind of what I've been hearing too, and listening to the Starting Nine podcast, they talk about this, and it was one of those things where apparently it was to try and supposedly to get under the luxury tax, because apparently Boston was much over that. The Boston Red Sox, you cannot and you will not convince me that they are struggling for money. You just can't. The Boston Red Sox, if you want to pay, if Mookie Betts wants $400 million, give him $400 million. Money should not be an issue for them at all. And it's one of those things, and I kind of saw an interesting theory. I can't remember who brought it up or where I saw it from. But that they potentially maybe are trading Mookie Betts and David Price to get under that luxury tax threshold. So then that next season, if Mookie Betts doesn't resign and he's a free agent, that they bring him back too, which would be interesting. If it's that case, if Mookie Betts, is 100% sure he will come back, now you have Jeter Downs, who apparently is really good, Connor Wong, not to mention Verdugo. That's a guy that kind of gets lost in all this.
I want to touch on that later. Yeah.
A solid player too, for sure. A young player with the Dodgers that played pretty well. Maybe an interesting theory there. I could see that happening. But if I'm the Boston Red Sox, I don't know. I personally, you can get the top 15 number one prospects for the next 15 years, and it still wouldn't make up for Mookie Betts.
Exactly. Now, I agree. Now, I don't want to just act like this trade was. I mean, this trade was bad, I think, because they got rid of Betts. But I mean, I do like what they got back. Like Verdugo, if it weren't for Alonso being just an absolute stud last year, would have had a decent chance at Rookie of the Year. I mean, he's a heck of a player. I mean, he's not huge home run guy, but he can pretty much do it all as well.
Right.
He played defensively very well. And he's gonna replace Betts, I would assume, in the lineup. I do think that's a good ad. And then Jeter Downs and Connor Wong are 32nd overall pick and 100th overall pick. They're 21 and 23. I really like them, and Connor Wong has been pretty good in the minors. So I do like what they got back.
Right.
It's just
not enough.
Regardless, it's not going to make up for losing Betts. I just don't see it. And one more thing. I will say, they got rid of Gonzalez and Crawford and Beckett in that huge blockbuster deal with the same team in the Dodgers a long time ago. Yeah. And it actually worked out for them. It actually kind of helped for both teams. The Dodgers didn't win a World Series, but they almost did. And the Red Sox ended up using all that money that they got between like Johnny Gomes and a bunch of other, fill-in guys that helped them win that World Series that year. So you could use that as an example of why they did this. But I think this is way different. Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, Beckett were not Mookie Betts.
No.
And
not even in their prime.
No. And just because it worked once does not mean it's going to work again.
Right.
I do think they got stuff, but I like what they got back. It just doesn't matter because you traded Betts.
No, it doesn't. And, I guess we can just speak on the Dodgers side of things now. Now you're getting, you talk about a Dodgers team now, for sure. We kind of touched on it last week, but now that it's official, you talk about a Dodgers team that is going to slug. Come on. Cody Bellinger, Mookie Betts, Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Jock Peterson is still going to be there now because that trade's not going through.
Question, do you think, holy crap. So clearly, I'm guessing, so Betts in right and Bellinger in center. You think Peterson's going to be in left?
It's the Dodgers. It's kind of weird because it feels like they have like a rotation of people at first base because they've thrown Muncy there. Peterson played there a little bit. Bellinger played there a little bit. And the outfield wasn't really set. I know a lot of times not Mookie Betts. Cody Bellinger played a lot of right field too, and Jock Peterson played a lot of center, and vice versa. So, I think, It's going to be fine. No matter what. I mean, if you're Dave Roberts, this is a phenomenal problem to have. Is where do you play people?
Well,
It's stupid good.
Yeah. Regardless, yeah. What I was getting at, they're going to have two. I believe Bellinger and Betts are both Gold Glove winners.
Yeah.
They're going to have two Gold Glove winners in the outfield. Like I said, MLB put them as the third and fourth best players in the league. They both won an MVP in the last 2 years, and that's most likely 2 or 3 outfielders, or maybe Bellinger will play first and whatever. And then you got Peterson there as well, and all sorts of guys. I mean, it's just like you said, it's loaded.
And not to talk about Gavin Lux too, who kind of was brought up a little bit late for the Dodgers last season too. I mean, I don't know, man. And Corey Seager at shortstop too kind of was hurt. Hasn't really been himself the last couple of years. He had Tommy John surgery, but still, Corey Seager, the potential that this guy plays with. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. One, I'm kind of jealous because, call me biased, but I do really think the Twins have a legitimate case as the best roster in baseball just because 1 through 9, they're so deep. But now that the Dodgers added Betts, it's like, my goodness gracious. You got Betts, Bellinger, Turner, Peterson, Seager, Lux. Every year they seem to call up a guy who almost wins Rookie of the Year.
Every year.
Who plays offense. It's like, and I'm pretty sure they got a really good a catcher who's young that's supposed to be really good. It's like, gee.
Yeah. I think if the Dodgers are going to win the World Series, not to say that, because these last 2 seasons, one of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball on paper and record-wise too. Well, if the Dodgers do not win the World Series this year, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. I have no idea.
To be honest, I've actually started to feel bad for them. I know it's the Dodgers.
I don't.
All the money, blah blah blah. But they haven't. It's kind of crazy. They haven't won one in 29, 30 years, something like that. They're always there. They just can't get it. They just can't quite get over the hump. It's weird. But I could easily see them lose it. Baseball is just that sport. The best team doesn't win it. The best team doesn't win every year. All you need is one guy to go out there and throw a gem. And the Detroit Tigers of all teams can have a guy throw a gem every once in a while. So you never know. But the Dodgers, later on we'll have a predictions for MLB. And I do mine every year. I'm guessing I'm going to have the Dodgers winning somewhere close to 110 games. I really do. Even if a guy gets injured, they can overcome it. You got all sorts of guys. They're going to win a lot of games. A lot of games.
Well, good thing. I'm excited that the Rockies get to see them, every day this year. Just the fact that the Rockies didn't do anything in the offseason. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet, but they haven't done anything.
Does the AL Central play the NL West this year?
The AL Central?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, because I know the Rockies are playing the Twins. So
we play the Dodgers. So the Twins play the Dodgers too. I gotta check.
That'll be interesting.
I gotta check if that's Minnesota or not. I'm guessing it is because last time we played LA, it was in LA. I don't know. I'll have to check that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Where's the Twins Rockies at?
I want to say that's. I'm trying to think the last time we played, because I remember one of the last times we played each other. It was in Colorado, and I remember I think Brian Dozier hit 2 home. I was at that game. I'm pretty sure Brian Dozier hit 2 home runs, and he wrapped one right inside the foul pole for a home run. That was the game right before the All-Star break.
I'll go look.
Yeah, I don't know.
June 26th. Rockies at Twins.
Oh, they're in Minnesota. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, who knows? Maybe I'll figure something out to go out there and watch it.
And then Twins, Dodgers, January, February, March, April 28th. It's right away.
Hey,
April 28th. April 28th. Twins at Dodgers. So Twins play in LA again this year.
Okay. All right. Well.
Not that mattered. I was just curious.
Yeah. Also for the Dodgers, a guy that also is kind of getting lost, David Price. I like that for the Dodgers too.
Yeah, he's better than Maeda probably,
Oh yeah.
So it's not like they're even gonna miss Maeda. Good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, you just talk about Betts, you forget about Price. And I know I kind of mentioned last week the part I didn't like about the trade was the fact that David Price, I thought, was going to be one of those starters who you might be able to trade for at the trade deadline. Well, now you're not going to be able to because he's a Dodger and they're going to be in it. So the Twins can't get him. One other thing that I just thought of real quick, maybe the Red Sox truly do think, Betts is going to be done and he's going to come back and sign with the Red Sox. I find that hard to believe. I think he's going to sign with the Dodgers, but let's just say the Red Sox aren't really in at the trade deadline. Now that they don't have Betts, I have a feeling JD Martinez might come up in trade talks.
You think so?
I do, because for a while I've remember talks with the Red Sox. They might get rid of anybody and anybody. Who knows? Well, if they're getting rid of Betts, like Martinez ain't young. He's gonna want money.
Right.
Like, if they're not gonna pay Betts, why are they gonna pay Martinez? Martinez is a very, very, very good hitter too, and he's gonna get a lot of money. I think JD Martinez might get offered up in trade talks this year too.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for the Red Sox. See what happens here. Jock Peterson to the Angels, kind of mentioned it before, it's not going to be happening now. Apparently, the Angels owner, Artie Moreno, kind of got impatient with this whole hold up on the Mookie Betts thing with the Dodgers. So he just said he canceled it. Sorry about it. So Mike Trout doesn't get another bat in the outfield to help him.
I think that's a very bad mistake by the owner. I'd say he probably just wanted to act like LA Dodgers are terrible for not getting this trade done, although it wasn't even their fault, really. It was Boston. They probably got the best of him and wanted to say, wanted to shove it to LA. But he should look in the mirror like, yo, the Dodgers are way better than you. You need Peterson a lot more than they do. You need a left-handed bat. You need all the help you can get to make the playoffs because you've just fallen short. You've fallen just short year after year. You need to get Peterson. And the big story of this is not that the Dodgers keep him, it's that the Angels missed out on him. Because I really think that would have been a good addition for them. Like I mentioned, he's a left-handed hitter, which they got good hitters, but they don't have many left-handed hitters. That's important to have variety between your righties and lefties. Peterson's a guy who's been, for the most part, healthy, can hit home runs. He's a very good player, and the Angels are missing out on a good player, and they weren't getting rid of much to get him. I mean, they were barely getting rid of anything at all, so they should have stuck through and tried to get him.
And they really should have, and I think that I don't think that the offense is going to struggle by any means for the Angels, nonetheless. I just think if you were to add Jock Peterson, I mean, that only helps you out significantly more. It gives you more at-bats, gives you more home runs, more runs driven in. And then, the Angels owner, Artie Moreno, he just got impatient. I think it's one of those things where, you're probably a little pissed that the Dodgers are holding this whole thing up. What's going on with Gratterall? Is he going to go there? What's going to happen? And, it's just sometimes you got to be patient with this stuff. I mean, you want Mike Trout to get the playoffs. You want Mike Trout to win a World Series. Yeah, Jock Peterson can't pitch. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to be a wild card team, though, maybe potentially competing for that. But not having Jock Peterson, that only means that you're going to have to rely on your pitching that isn't very good, might I add, that much more than if you were to have had Jock Peterson, where you don't have to rely on it as much.
Exactly. I mean, I think Peterson's a player who could give you a potential 2 or 3 more wins this year, and that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And the main thing is, I mean, I'm a very impatient person too, but you mentioned, you just got to be patient. It's one thing if this is right before the trade deadline, and this trade and whether it happens or not is holding up everything else you might do. That's completely different. But the season doesn't even start for over a month. You don't have anything to be impatient about right now. Just let it play out. Let it play out and see what happens. You can't. I mean, losing Jock Peterson or not getting him is not good for LA. That was a huge addition for them, in my opinion. And I think it looks bad on that owner's part.
It does,
honestly.
Unfortunate. I mean, do I think they're going to be competing for a wild card now? I mean, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be as clear if they're going to get one of the wild cards now that Jock Peterson is not there. I mean, like you mentioned, he brings 2 to 3 more wins. You may think, 2 to 3, how much does that impact? But when you're talking about wild card, I think we can all agree the Astros are probably going to win the division. I don't think there's much doubt behind that. But when it comes to the wild card team, being the top wild card and having the home field for that one game versus missing out on the wild card altogether if you're the third team out or the first team out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost always a difference of a couple games. I mean, you're 100% right there.
I mean, I personally don't think they make the playoffs even with Peterson. I'm not quite as high on the Angels as a lot of people are, but I do think they're going to have a great lineup, and they're missing on the potential chance of having an even better one. And I do think they're going to be a decent team with a chance of making it. But without Peterson, I really think their chances are slim, because I don't think they're not even the second best team in that division. Oakland is. Texas should be competitive, and between
Seattle's
the Twins and
bad.
Indians. Yeah, Seattle's bad. And then between Twins, Indians, and then Yankees, Rays, and maybe even Red Sox, it's going to be hard to get a wild card in the American League. Yeah. So like I said, I think this looks really bad on the owner's part. I really do.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, we'll have to look back on that, see if it's going to hurt them much. Like I said, I think it will, but we'll have to find out.
To mention that Trout's been injured a lot in his career lately. I mean, not serious, but he's missed a lot of time. He's an outfielder. Well, Peterson can step in and play outfield for him.
Absolutely. So some new MLB rules. So there's new MLB rules, and then there is potential playoff ones that are just being proposed. So we're going to talk about the new MLB rules that will for sure be in place for us next season. There was a few of them, but the big ones were essentially that now the 25-man roster is going to be expanded to the 26-man roster. I thought one that I don't think it's really big, but I think it's just kind of interesting because you see it all the time. The position players pitching, essentially it was position players can only pitch if it's extra innings or if your team is either winning or losing by 6 runs, at least 6 runs, then a position player can come in. Which I don't know why you bring a position player in a 1-run game anyways, but okay, whatever.
Exactly. So that rule, I know we'll get to all of them, but that rule I don't think is much of an impact. I highly doubt there was many situations where a player was pitching in a game that was closer than 6 runs anyways. It is funny though, because Chris Jimenez was a Twin like 2 years ago, and he pitched in like 6 games or something like that. It was kind of funny.
And then this is the big one, kind of the one that everyone is talking about, that pitchers must face at least 3 batters before being removed. Now, they can come in an inning and face a batter, get the batter out, and then the inning can be over, and then they can be replaced. But essentially, if they are being brought in the beginning of an inning or the middle of an inning, essentially they have to face at least 3 batters coming in. And this is for starters too, so this isn't just relievers. This is if a starter, only, I don't know which, unless you're the Tampa Bay Rays, starters are only, they're going to be pitching the duration of the game nonetheless. Mainly for relievers, you can only face 3 batters, at least 3 batters before being removed. Nick, I know you want to go off, so I'm just going to let you take it here.
I am so upset by this. I don't know who exactly puts these rules into fruition, but with this, and then we're going to touch on it later, but the whole proposed playoff expansion thing later. If Manfred has a lot to do with it, oh my God, Manfred, please step down. You're awful. I'm sorry, but I hate this rule. I cannot explain to you how much I hate this rule. The one thing baseball has for it that I love about baseball so much is the strategies involved. Like, you'll have 2 people who have been in baseball for 50 years, both. All there is to do about baseball, and they can have 2 completely different ways of going about a situation. It doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong. It's just there's so much strategy in baseball. And the biggest thing is the way you use your relievers. The main thing this affects is relievers. You have guys who are specifically on your team to be a left-handed specialist reliever. A lot of teams have that. The Giants always used to, and they won 3 World Series in 5 years. Bruce Bochy, you picked a good time to step down because Bochy was the one guy who always put in a pitcher for like one guy and then left. Like I said, there's left-handed relievers who are on a team specifically to go face the lefty, get him out, leave the game. Yeah. I mean, that's why there's not a lot of left-handed pitchers, but the reason there's as many as there is because there's specialists. There's a lot of guys wouldn't even ever be in the major leagues if it weren't for the fact that they were a lefty and could pitch. But that's the reason they are. And this is just ruining that. You're just changing the game so much. I understand they want to speed up the game. But if you're changing the game this much by doing so, it's not worth it. No. And this is going to affect the regular season, but it's really going to affect the postseason. Yeah. You don't see relievers come in for only 1 or 2 batters all that often in the regular season. But in the playoffs, you see it all the time. I'm going to go back to Bochy, and in this case, it didn't work. I think it was against the Cubs, but he used like 6 or 7 pitchers in one inning one time. It was to get like 2 outs. But in the playoffs, all the time, especially with those expanded rosters, you see pitchers come in and take 1 or 2 batters, and then you're done. I mean, what if if your starter goes 7 innings? I know in playoffs that's rare now, but let's just say your starter goes 7 innings. You got 10 relievers to use up. It's the playoffs. Who cares about tomorrow? You're going to use all of them if you want. If you're going to put best matchup, you can have one pitcher get 1 out, next pitcher get 1 out, next pitcher get 1 out. I'm totally fine with that, and I think you should be able to do it. Well, now you can't do that. And like I said, they want to make it so the game's faster. But it's just going to totally change the game, and it's going to affect the playoffs most. And there's a lot of people who won't watch baseball just because they don't like how slow it is. The regular season, there's so much games. But I've heard so many times how much people love postseason baseball. So why change it? Like, there's people who don't like the MLB much in general, but they still watch playoffs. I know they do. Well, so obviously they didn't care about the fact that a major league postseason game takes 4 hours. So why is it that big deal that you have to change it? I hate this rule. I really do. It takes strategy out of it. It will make it for those teams that have 4 legit relievers, make them even more valuable, because if you're going to need a pitcher to get 3 outs, you want really good relievers. Well, so the teams with a good bullpen, it's going to be good for them. But I just hate this rule. And I know I just went on a big tangent, but what's your take? I hate this rule.
You said a lot of things that I agree with you with a lot, actually, with all of it. Matchups are an incredible thing in sports. In any sport, you want to have the best matchup available, whether it's, having your center, going up, or having like LeBron go up against the top point guard. Well, the top point guard might be quicker, but if LeBron's your best defender, you're going to throw him on that guy.
It's kind of like finding the mismatch, getting it to the big man down low when there's a small guy on him. Yeah,
finding the mismatch, 100%. And baseball is probably that's the biggest sport where matchups, I think, matter so much more. You talk about it. A guy that comes to mind, Andrew Miller, for the Cleveland Indians, an absolute workhorse for the Indians. Yeah. Tito brought him in a lot of situations to get him out of situations. Now, granted, Miller normally wasn't coming in for just 1 or 2 batters anyways. He was normally coming in for a couple innings. But nonetheless, you put him in against a big lefty bat, he's going to get him out. And it's frustrating because you mentioned it. MLB and Manfred is trying to speed up the game. They're trying to get more people watching the game, trying to make it more appealing to the younger crowd. In my opinion, and this is what I've always had, is if you're not going to be able to sit through an entire game, then don't watch baseball. Granted, yeah, I want people to watch baseball. I do.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
I do, 100%. If we could have 15 billion people watching a baseball game every single day like we do for the NFL, that would be amazing. But,
I would love it.
And that would be phenomenal. But it's one of those things where, yeah, if you want to get more people in by, quite frankly, screwing over players and screwing over teams, you're telling me that's worth it? I mean, I'm sorry. It's just, there are players in the game, bullpen guys, who, like you mentioned, their sole purpose on the team is probably to only come in and face 1-2 batters a game and then take them out. And it's frustrating.
For example, like, I know I mentioned the Giants a lot, but it's because the team that really comes to mind with this, Jeremy Affeldt was the one.
Yeah.
Jeremy Affeldt, and there was one other one that I'm blanking on. Something else. Javier Lopez, I think maybe.
Yep.
They'd come in for 1 batter. Even if they didn't get him out, but they'd just come in to pitch that lefty, and then they'd give it to Brian Wilson or Sergio Romo or Hunter Strickland, because that's what it was. It's all about matches. Righties and lefties, for the most part, if you're a righty shooter or a lefty shooter in basketball, for the most part, it doesn't matter. If you're a righty quarterback or a lefty quarterback, it may be a little bit, depending on, like, if you're a lefty, you probably want your right tackle to be better than your left tackle, but for the most part, it's not a huge deal. In baseball, it's righty and lefty is huge.
Yeah.
It's everything. There's only 17% of the people in the world are lefties or whatever. That's why left-handed relievers are so important, because there's not many of them, and you need those guys to get out those lefties, to get out those Bellingers in the 8th inning. You need those lefties, and now if now you're gonna have to put in a lefty. Okay, you got Bellinger up. Let's put in a lefty to get Bellinger out. Well, okay, you get Bellinger out. Well, now you got 2 stud righties, but now you got Betts and Justin Turner behind him. I don't know how their lineup's gonna be, but now you want that lefty out there to go face those two? No, you don't. But you have to if you want to put him in for Bellinger. It's just, I hate this rule so much I can't even put it into words.
I do. Yeah, and I feel it's one of those things too where, what brings people to the game for the most part? It's going to be home runs, it's going to be high-scoring games, it's going to be offense. And I feel this is just another way to bring more offense to the game, which I'm not, don't get me wrong. I like offense. I'm a Rockies fan. You're a Twins fan. We both have great offenses. We do. But pitching is so much more valuable. And that's why, like you mentioned, like we brought up 1,000 times, pitching in the playoffs is 100% more valuable than really good hitting. Timely hitting is different from really good hitting.
Yes, and the playoffs is all about good pitching and timely hitting.
Exactly. And I don't care. I don't care that you're trying to shave time off the game. I don't care that, you want to, I don't know, you want to make it more appealing. At the end of the day, what, you're gonna take out a minute commercial break to frickin', just to make sure you don't have a guy coming in for each out of the inning? I mean, it's stupid. It's just dumb.
Plus, not to mention, yes, it's probably going to save a little bit of time because there's less pitching changes, but it's also going to provide more runs. Well, if you score 4 runs in an inning, it's going to take a lot longer than if you score 0 or 1.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be the difference to 3 runs, but more runs, high-scoring games are long games too. And you're going to get more runs now scored, so it's not going to affect the time that much. It isn't. And it's probably going to lead to more mound visits. It's probably going to lead to more runs, like I said. It's not going to lead to that much more, to that much less time.
And it isn't. And this kind of goes back to the whole batters staying in the batter's box, trying to have a certain amount of time in between commercial timeouts, mound visits, pitch clock. It's just dumb. I think Manfred and Major League Baseball is trying to make the game so much for people who don't appreciate the game for what it is.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to.
I mean, I am fine with speeding up the game, but you can't do it if you're going to change the game this much. Like, I'm fine with pitch clocks. I mean, I'm not saying they have to have them, but like, if you need more than 30 seconds to throw a pitch, I mean, come on, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't need that much time. So I'm okay with that. And that doesn't change the game that much. Sure, there might be 1 or 2 pitchers that just really takes off, but come on, give me a break. You don't need that much time. That doesn't change the game that much. I'm fine with pitch clocks, but this is just absurd. 2 hitters would be one thing, but 3 batter minimum? That's insane. Most pitchers only, even the way the rules are now, most pitchers only throw an inning and then they're done. A lot of pitchers throw 1 or 2 guys. It happens all the time. I just hate this rule. I hate it.
Yeah.
And going into the next one, sorry, but the 26-man roster thing you mentioned. So adding more, so the more pitching changes, National League people need more, typically go through their whole bench in a game, right?
Typically, yeah.
Because you need more guys, because there's more pitching changes, because there's more pinch hitting and whatnot. So expanding the roster would makes I like, but making a 3 batter minimum means less pitching changes, which makes less need for a roster expansion. So how do these rules even correlate?
I don't know.
That's one thing too. Like, I'm fine with the 26 man. I kind of like that, but this doesn't even correlate with the other rules. So like, I just don't get it.
I don't. Well, that's one baseball thing, and we can now rant about another baseball thing about the proposed playoffs now. Now, obviously, this one is not set in stone. This is just something that was brought out that's being talked about. essentially the big things from that is that the playoffs will get expanded in each league from 5 teams to now 7 teams, adding adding another wild card there as well too. And then that the top seed will essentially get a bye and will get to choose who they play. So, Nick Duckett, let me ask you, which one are you more ticked off about? Is it that now the playoffs will have half the league in it, or is it now that the top team will not only get a bye, but will also get to choose who they play? Which one is more egregious?
The first one. Because, like, I'm okay. Like, giving the higher seed more of an advantage, I'm fine with. Like, I don't mind that one just because it actually makes the regular season seem a little relevant. But then if you're going to add more teams to the playoffs anyways, what the heck's it matter? I hate the fact that they're talking about a 14-team playoff. This makes me even more mad than the 3-batter minimum because that's affecting each individual game. But when you're talking about who makes the playoffs and whatnot, that is huge. And making the 14 teams in the playoffs is absurd. The NFL is the most popular sport in the U.S. because one, they play 16 games, it's football, but the main thing is the regular season matters a lot because it's only 16 games and only 10 or 12 teams make it. 12 of 32 teams make it. That's what, like 35% ish range. Baseball, perfect amount right now, 10 of 30. That's 33%. Well, you know what? NBA is stupid. Nobody, not a soul cares about the NBA regular season because 16 teams make it out of 30. You could cakewalk your way to a playoff spot if you're anywhere decent. LeBron doesn't even care about what seed he gets because if you're a top 2 team in your league, you're going to make it to the finals anyways. But it just makes it so for example, in the NBA back in the day, the Cavs were a 2 seed and had to play a useless, just pathetic 7 seed in the Celtics. Kevin Love got injured in a game that should have never been played in the first place and missed the rest of the playoffs and affected them because they had to play teams that don't even deserve to be in the playoffs. 16 is way too many. Hockey, I think, should change too, but hockey has a little bit of a pass just because the way that game works, 8 seeds beat 1s all the time. So why would baseball want to expand? It's just dumb. More teams is stupid. It dumbs down the regular season. It makes the regular season not matter. People already don't watch the regular season because they play 162 games. They're not going to watch it just because there's a little bit better chance their team makes the playoffs. If that were the case, they'd be watching it in June, July, August, but they don't. It's just I can't stand it. Don't reward mediocrity. If you can't be in the top third of your league, you do not deserve to be in the playoffs. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I will say this, though, and it's that you're not going to see many Major League Baseball teams, if this were to be a thing, you're not going to see teams that are 500 or a worse than 500 record making the playoffs like you do in the NBA, because there are times where a little bit above 500 teams are close to making the playoffs, but they don't. I think that would be the case. But nonetheless, I still agree with you. I think you reward the teams that have grinded through the season, grinded through the injuries. You know, the 10 teams that are in the playoffs deserve to be there. I do like in the past where they added the second wild card because I don't know about most people. I do like the 1-game playoff. Now, being a Rockies fan, I have been on the good side of it where we've won, and I've also been on the bad side of it where we've lost. Nonetheless, I still think it brings in more people to the game. I think it shows more people to playoff baseball. Like you mentioned, a ton of people watch playoff baseball. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the 10 team. I don't mind that because it's still only a third. That's completely fine. Right. 8 was I didn't mind 8 because it makes it even harder to make it. I want it to be hard to make playoffs, but I don't mind 10 because it makes it so right away in the playoffs you have that game 7 feel with the 1-game playoff twice, and it's awesome. And then it makes it the end of the regular season a little more exciting because there's more teams fighting for it. So sometimes if you only have 8 teams, it's pretty much decided already before, like and the last week of the season doesn't even really matter except for maybe a seeding. So I like 10 because it's still a third. But adding 4 more teams, that's making it so almost 50% of teams make it. Right. That's just absurd. In my opinion, you do not deserve to win the championship if you cannot be in the top 30 of your league for the whole year. You should not be able to just, they always say it's not about how good you are. It's when you get good, or, they're saying something like, it's about when you get hot. Now, I mean, I cheer for the underdog as much as anybody. Like in hockey, for instance, when the Blue Jackets beat Lightning in the first round last year, they swept them as an 8 seed. Kudos to them. Yes, they did a good job and deserve to win that series. But to me, if you can't be in the top 30 of your league or top 35 to 40% at least in the regular season, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs anyways. I'm sorry, but I'm not rewarding mediocrity in the regular season just to give you a shot to get hot in the playoffs. I don't stand for that. I don't like that. You should not reward mediocrity. And making 14 teams of 30 make it is rewarding mediocrity. That's what it's doing. Yeah. And it's not rewarding the good teams.
Right. I don't like that one a lot. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the top team getting a bye and then a pick. I was listening to Trevor Bauer because he was going off about this, about Manfred, about the Astros. I mean, he was just lighting no one was safe in Trevor Bauer's eyes. Was just going off. And he kind of mentioned that having a top seed is not going to help things because baseball is, sports are all about routines. Players get in routines. They're used to doing things at certain times because that's when they've done them. Baseball especially. Pitchers eat even more in baseball. If you're used to pitching every 5th day and then all of a sudden, you're going to have to wait probably a week or so before you pitch again, I think, in my opinion, and we see this all the time, it happened to the Rockies in 2007 when we went to the World Series. As a wildcard team, we swept our way through the playoffs. We swept the Diamondbacks. We swept the Phillies. We swept our way through the playoffs to get to the World Series. And we had dang near about, I don't remember what the time frame was, but it was dang near about 2 weeks off because the Red Sox were coming off of a 7-game series against the Cleveland Indians. Well, I still think if Cleveland won that series, I think the Rockies would have had a better chance than they did against the Red Sox. But nonetheless.
Did the Indians play you?
Yep, the Red Sox played the Indians in the ALCS, and that was to go to the World Series.
Sizemore?
I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, I vividly remember the Rockies sweeping their way to the playoffs and get swept in the World Series.
Swept our way to the playoffs, and the reason why we lost, I mean, granted, the Red Sox had probably a better roster, but the fact that the Red Sox were fresh off of a 7-game series and the Rockies were fresh off of a sweep, well, I don't say fresh, we had been sitting for a while, we were not as prepared. And I agree 100% with Trevor Bauer. You're used to pitching every 5th day. All of a sudden now, it's not like in other sports, like in the NFL. Obviously, you have a routine, but if a quarterback goes from playing every week to, now he's going to have 2 weeks off, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter as much as a pitcher who was pitching every 5th day and now having 2 weeks off or whatever the time frame would be before they go. I think the 1 seeds, and then they would get to pick who they play. This is the playoffs, okay? I'm sorry, but you should not be able to pick who you get to play. I get it, it would probably bring in more people because now it gets turned into like a reality TV show because who are the New York Yankees gonna pick to play them in the playoffs? Find out next. When we talk to Aaron Boone. Yeah, I'd host it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not. I decline it because I'm not a big fan of it. But you talked about it too with hockey. 8 seeds get to beat 1 seeds. It doesn't happen every day, but it happens a lot more frequently than people imagine it would. The 1 seeds in basketball, it would be essentially as if they are picking the 8 seed because the 8 seed normally is pretty trash. Now, granted, I will say, in years past, that's not always the case. But for the most part, it's pretty much how it is. You're telling me now you get to pick who you play? I'm sorry. It's just, you get to the playoffs. It's a grind to get to the playoffs. It should be a grind through the playoffs. You shouldn't be able to just pick your way to the World Series, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't have as big of a gripe with the whole picking thing. I don't mind it just because it's kind of, I think they're trying to reward the 1 seed. And although you're saying it's not really rewarding because of the buyout, and I get that, but I think they're trying to like reward the 1 seed. And I'm for that. I like that. It makes, like you said, because it makes the regular season matter. It makes you want to get that 1 seed. But if you want to reward a 1 seed, don't put 14 teams in the playoffs. That's the simplest way.
Right.
Because it just makes it, or at least like the 2 seeds now, they got to win 1 extra round. That's not, no, that's dumb. So yeah, the whole rule in general is just bad. It's really bad. And thankfully, like you mentioned, Bauer's not the only one to have a negative reaction. Not that my reaction matters, because I'm just a nobody, but I had a negative reaction. Trevor Bauer had a negative reaction. I've seen on social media all sorts of negative reactions to this. So hopefully that means it's not going to happen, because I will be very, very upset if it does.
Let's just put it this way. I have yet to see a positive reaction on social media. I have yet to see a positive from anywhere. I follow a ton of people on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I have yet to see one positive interaction for it.
And I mean, I know I keep jumping to the NBA. The NBA, for example, they've, we talked about on like a first or second podcast with load management. And I said, don't get mad at Kawhi Leonard for sitting out. Get mad at the NBA for allowing it, because they don't make it so the regular season matters. The best way to handle load management is to lessen the amount of playoff teams. There's so many situations in sports. Well, basketball specifically, because they're the ones, them and hockey are the ones who currently put over half their team and half their league in the playoffs. There's so many problems that can be solved if you lessen the amount of playoff teams. They won't do it because it means less playoff games and less money being made. It's all a money draw, and it's unfortunate. But the regular season will always be more valuable and more important if there's less teams in it, in my opinion. It's just because there's no reason to watch like basketball, for instance. There's no reason to watch every game the Lakers and the Bucks play, because they're going to make the playoffs anyways. Like, I don't want to see good teams be able to coast to the playoffs, and I don't want to see bad teams be able to make it.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Here, folks, you're not used to us getting too riled up, getting too pissed off. Well, welcome to it, folks. You don't get this often, so definitely soak it in while you can. Oh, man. Got the blood pumping, Nick. Got the blood pumping on that one.
Yeah. Mine's been boiling ever since I heard that whole playoff format thing 2 or 3 days ago.
Well, anyway.
Oh, and I don't think we mentioned sorry, this is normally your job, but we didn't mention the other, some of the other rule changes. But the pitchers are changed to a 15-day IL. I don't think that's a big thing. Pitchers can't go on the 10-day IL anymore. They can just do the 15-day. I mean, I don't think that's going to have much of an impact. Maybe a little bit, because you can't just throw a guy on the IL who probably shouldn't even be in there to begin with to add another player to your team. I think that's why they changed it, but I don't think that's a big change. And then the other one is 20 seconds to decide to challenge rather than 30?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't think it's going to take – that's really going to matter at all, because most of the time when you challenge, it's when it's fairly obvious, and it shouldn't take you 20 seconds to realize that anyways. So
right. Well, anyways, so we can move on from that. Move on to some other sports now, because believe it or not, there are other sports out there besides baseball.
They just don't get me riled up as much.
Yeah, don't get me as riled up as much. So we'll move on to some football. This is kind of the beginning of the week, but Phillip Rivers and the Chargers parted ways. I don't think this one was too much of a surprise. I think a lot of people saw this coming. As far as that goes, where do you see Phillip Rivers going, or do you see him retiring?
I see him going to the living room. The dude's washed up. Yeah. I mean, he's not going to take a job as a backup. I mean, I don't know why he would. And I don't think anybody's going to give him a starting job. I don't know why you would. Why would you put your money in Phillip Rivers, who's not even that good, and he's 58 years old? Like, just go get a young guy. If he goes anywhere, I think the best fit is the Colts. I was watching NFL Live on Monday. They were talking about the best fit for Rivers, and some said Buccaneers, some said Colts. The Buccaneers make absolutely no sense, because if they're going to move on from Jameis Winston, then why would you go to Phillip Rivers, who's second to Jameis Winston in turnovers, I think, the last 2 years. The only guy who turns it over more than Rivers is Winston. So why would you go from Winston to Rivers? The one that would make sense is the Colts because they actually have a good O-line. And they're a team that's got good pieces, and maybe Rivers with a good O-line could be better. And could lead that team places. But I don't think you should go with Rivers if you're the Colts, and I don't think anybody's going to sign him. I really don't think so.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. I like Phillip Rivers. I think he's a good guy. Unfortunate. I mean, you talk about a team that at some point during their history has had some of the best players to ever play. Antonio Gates, LaDainian Tomlinson, Dan Fouts, Kellen Winslow. Never won a World Series. Never won a Super Bowl.
Well, they didn't win a World Series either.
Yeah, didn't win a World Series either. Never won a Super Bowl. You got to feel bad for Phillip Rivers. Now, here's the next question for you. Much like Eli Manning, there's a lot of debate if he is if he's a Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers, I think, is a little more difficult. Do you think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer?
See, Eli and Rivers are compared a lot because they got traded for each other. They're same draft. See, Eli had playoff success, whereas it wasn't that Rivers was bad in the playoffs. He just never really won or made a Super Bowl. But he's a much, much, much better quarterback in the regular season than Eli Manning. Much better, in my opinion. And I think he's one of the best regular season quarterbacks ever to not make a Super Bowl. I think that with NFL standards for Hall of Fame, that's good enough, and I'd be fine with him making it in.
Yeah.
I would probably put him in. But I think he'll make it, but I'm fine if he doesn't either. I think him and Eli have very similar cases just because Eli wasn't that great in the regular season, but had playoff success, whereas Rivers is one of the better regular season quarterbacks you've seen in the last 2 decades. He just didn't get over the hump in the playoffs.
See, for me, it's tough. I think, and I've brought this up before, I'm not a guy that likes to use rings as an argument. I think using rings as an argument is a very lazy argument. I think, however, when comparing two players that are fairly similar with each other, then I think, okay, well, sure, then maybe you can use rings as a comparison. This guy won one, this guy didn't win any.
Yeah.
As far as Rivers goes, I think he will get in, and I think for the fact that, like you mentioned, people have gotten to the NFL Hall of Fame for much less. And then Phillip Rivers, like you mentioned, I think at the end of the day, it's going to go back to how much do you value personally playoff success, because he hasn't had a lot of playoff success. Like you mentioned, not that he's played terrible in those games, but he just hasn't won. So I think you have to ask yourself, if you value playoff experience and success a lot more than having 15 really solid seasons putting up stats, then maybe he isn't. But if you value this guy was a phenomenal regular season quarterback, but when he got to the playoffs, like you mentioned, not that he was bad, he just couldn't get it done, then maybe you value that more. I think that's really what it's just going to come down to.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And like I said, by NFL standards, the standards they put forth over the last so many years for Hall of Fame, and just judging by who's got in, I think Rivers is deserving. But in my opinion, baseball is the hardest one to get in, I think, at least between the major four. I'm not too sure of hockey, but baseball is probably the hardest to get in. And I still think there's a little leeway there. I think it should be incredibly hard. MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, their Hall of Fame should be for legends. I mean, you should have to be very, very, very good to make the Hall of Fame. And that's just not the way it is. And the standards for NFL aren't that high, I don't think. And because of that, I think Rivers is probably going to make it in.
NBA too, for that matters. It's not.
Basketball is the easiest. You don't even call it the NBA Hall of Fame. It's a basketball Hall of Fame. It's so easy. If Yao Ming can make the Hall of Fame, then I should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame for my open gym performances and the one I'm going to put on you on Sunday.
Yeah, that's fake news. We don't got to get into that now. But no, and I was watching, everyone when I watched The Herd with Cowherd and Joy Taylor, every once in a while they bring up that Hall of Fame. and this is one of the only things that I don't agree with them on. They think that the NFL Hall of Fame is one of the hardest ones to get into. Personally, I think it's
baseball.
I think baseball is the hardest for sure. I think basketball is the easiest. I think football is not. I don't think it's like right behind basketball, but it definitely is not the most difficult to get into. Like you mentioned, you see guys get in there all the time that like for example, when you look at the MLB Hall of Fame, I guess mainly for people who watch baseball, you hear guys get to the Hall of Fame, like those are names that you have heard of. Like, Derek G, Larry Walker, whatever. Yeah. A lot of people haven't heard of Larry Walker, but they know what he's done. Look up stats, look at videos. Derek Jeter, the big names. In football, it feels like everybody gets in. NBA, there's a lot of big names, but as if they're deserving or not, I don't know. And that's a debate for another day, obviously.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree. I think baseball is the hardest. I mean, just look. If it takes Larry Walker 10 years to get in, it's clearly harder than football, where some of these guys get in first, second try that aren't anywhere near as good of a football player as Larry Walker is a base player. And basketball is a joke. Yao Ming was good, but he wasn't great, and he only played for what? He was only good for maybe 6 years, and he made the Hall of Fame. I mean, come on, that's a joke. And like Chauncey Billups, yeah, he's a great player, and he hasn't made the Hall yet, but he's like being talked about, and he's nominated for it, and they're like, Billups Hall of Famer? No, not even close, in my opinion. But
the king of Park Hill, baby. Don't disrespect my.
I love Mr. Big
my Denver boy,
Chauncey. But he shouldn't be anywhere. He shouldn't even be in the same sentence as Hall of Fame.
Missed a big shot. No, but anyways, Phillip Rivers, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he'll get in. I personally don't think he'll play next season. We can move on from that.
I will say, if Rivers retires this year and him and Gates get entered in the Hall of Fame this same
year, that'd be cool. That would be super cool.
But the only way that would happen is if he'd hang it up this year.
So Tom Brady, talked about again. Obviously, we don't know if he will be going back to the Patriots. They have been bringing up stuff about potentially going to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, personally, if just commenting on this quick, and then I'll give it to you. I don't think that Dak Prescott is a guy that you should move on from. Granted, I don't think Dak Prescott is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think he's terrible. He's going to win you games. But Tom Brady, I think right now is definitely in a decline in his career. He's not the same player that he was 5 years ago, by any means. Do you see this? I guess, number one, would this make sense for the Cowboys if they were to get Tom Brady? And number two, do you think that this is actually going to be a thing?
It would make complete and total sense. I mean, I don't mind Prescott. I think they can win with Prescott. I mean, I don't think they'll win a Super Bowl with him in the near future, but I think they could. I mean, I like Prescott. But if you can get Brady, I'd definitely do it. Yes, he's on a decline. I mean, he's what, 43, 42? I mean, but he's still Tom Brady. He's still good. And not that a great O-line is essential for him, because it's like he's got the eyes in the back of his head, and he seems to have such good pocket presence anyways, but you definitely would want a good O-line for him. And the Cowboys have a great one, a very good O-line. And they got Amari Cooper, Elliott. I really like Michael Gallup. To me, there's just all the weapons there for him, and I think he would just thrive in that offense. I think it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I didn't answer two. Will it happen? I don't think so. I do think they will eventually re-sign Prescott, and I think Brady's going to stay in New England. If he doesn't, I mean, maybe Dallas, but I don't know. I'd say probably like Indy is probably more likely, or I don't know, maybe Vegas, but I'm not buying into that.
I will say this: I do think that if you're any team in the NFL and you get Tom Brady to be your starting quarterback, I think the advantage to that is now whichever quarterback is there, because they're great. I mean, Drew Brees is probably about the only other guy that's up there in age with Tom Brady. I mean, I'm sure I'm drawing a blank, but as far as like eliteness goes and age, pretty much those two in a class by themselves.
Yep.
So if Tom Brady were to go to essentially any other team, I feel that that's a plus because now, like a Miami Dolphin, for example, we know we're not going to, but if we were to bring in Tom Brady, I'd be 100% okay with that. Because now if we draft, Tua from Alabama, then great. You're now learning under the best quarterback to have ever played in the game and, of all time. And that's a positive, too. Even if Brady doesn't have much to offer as far as stats and numbers-wise, just knowledge-wise, I mean, in that regards, I think it makes a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm. So what's your prediction? Are you going to stay?
I don't think he's going to go back to the Patriots. Okay. But I'm not like 100%. Like, I think I'm like 60-40, 60 that, yeah, he's going to leave, 40 he's going to go back. But I don't think the Cowboys would be the team that he goes to. Personally, I'm with a lot of people. I think the Chargers make a ton of sense. You talk about a team that now you have a phenomenal running back duo in Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, a great tight end in Hunter Henry, one of the more underrated receivers in the game in Keenan Allen, and a very solid defense, too.
To that point, Keenan Allen is like maybe even a better Julian Edelman, too. So it's like he'd be getting a Julian Edelman, too. Yeah.
Right. And I think that with the lack of talent that the Patriots had this year on offense, if you're Tom Brady, I think that's appealing because the Patriots so far, I mean, granted, we're only like a little over a week removed from the Super Bowl, but like still the Patriots didn't do anything last offseason. When Gronk retired, they really didn't do anything to try and replace him. And now this offseason, I can't imagine they're going to be doing too much either. So if you're Tom Brady, it's like, yeah, look, we just lost in the first round of the Tennessee Titans, lost week 17 to the Miami Dolphins when we could have had a first round bye, and we didn't. We lost. Now we're a wild card team, and we have to play right away. You go to a team like the Chargers who have skills. They have phenomenal players already there. So that, yeah. So if I'm Tom Brady, personally, I think that's hella appealing. You talk about a Patriots team that didn't have a lot going right for them last season to go to like the Chargers, who have I think is a more talented roster than the New England Patriots are. I think I would go if I'm Tom Brady. I'm not Tom Brady. I'm sitting here talking about him.
So there's one team that I've heard suggested that I really want to hear your opinion on. I'll get to that. But first, I do think he's going to stay. I just think he's going to. It sounds like Kraft wants him back, and I think they're going to offer him a contract he'd like. So I think it's really just up to him whether he wants to go back or not, depending on, as in like, if he wants to come back, I think he'll be back. And I do think he's going to go back. And I want him to go back. I don't know. I just do. But I would love to see him play elsewhere. I would really like that just because I think so many people, and I can't stand it, but so many people give Belichick so much credit and say Brady's not even that good. It's all Belichick. And if Brady could succeed somewhere else, he could prove them wrong. And if he leaves, I think he's going to stay in New England. But if he leaves, the team I would like to see him go to is Dallas. But the team I've heard suggested, which makes a lot of sense, is the Titans. And what do you have to think about that? Because if I were the Titans, I was all for signing Tannehill because I think Tannehill is great. But if you get Brady, I think you'd have to do that. And I've heard that I've seen that suggestion, and I think that's interesting. And what's your take on the Titans?
Yeah, that's like I said, Tom Brady, if you were to go to the Titans, now you potentially have Ryan Tannehill. I mean, not like Tannehill's only been in the league for 2 seasons. He's been around a little bit now. But now he can learn under Tom Brady.
Well, Tannehill's not signed yet, so I think Tannehill would probably go somewhere else then, which would also be interesting.
Sure, but it's tough. I think that Tannehill – I think the Titans are going to bring back Tannehill. I think what they should do is they should franchise tag him for this season, see how he does. If he balls out, then give him a contract extension for 4 years or whatever. If he's terrible, then, okay, well, yeah, it was just 1 season that he was bad, and now you can go elsewhere. So personally, I don't see that one happening. No.
Okay. I just want to get your take on that because you're a big Tannehill guy. Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Just like I am. But I seen that suggested. And, I mean, if I were Tennessee, I love me some Tannehill. But if I could get Brady, I'd get him. But I don't think that's a real realistic. But there are some people, like I know Colin Cowherd, I think, has the Titans as the most likely destination after New England, I believe. So I just want to hear your take on that.
That'll be interesting.
Because if you put Brady with that O-line and Derrick Henry and that defense, I mean, dang. Granted, Tannehill did just beat Brady in the playoffs, but I don't think it's because he's better than Brady.
Well, obviously, Tannegoat.
Yeah, he is the Tannegoat. Brady's the GOAT. Ryan Tannehill's the
Tannegoat. So move on from that and move on to some NHL stuff now. Obviously, things are going to be heating up now that the trade deadline is in a little bit and not just a little bit over a week away now. So we did have one trade so far, your Minnesota Wild, trading with Pittsburgh, trading Zucker to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Alex Galchenyuk, I don't know. Alex something. I can't pronounce the last name.
Galchenyuk?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to. We need Ryan Foster on here. I mean, heck, I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast. There's even a name he was struggling on, so I don't feel so bad now if I can't get a name if he's struggling on one. And a 2020 first-round pick and Cale Addison as well, too. As far as the Minnesota Wild go, I think this is a good trade for the Wild. Zucker, it sounds like he wasn't doing much anyways. They was kind of doing some fourth line, third line work, wasn't getting a whole lot of ice time. And then trading him to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh gave up a lot for a guy that hasn't been solid in a couple seasons. But obviously you'll probably know a little bit more about this than I will. But what do you think about that?
I like the trade. I think it's probably a better trade for the Wild just because the Penguins got rid of a lot. But I do think both teams are benefiting from this. Because like I said, I am always an advocate for if you're good, trade away what, supposedly the future for proven talent now.
Yeah.
Because you play now. If the future is now, you play for it now. So I'm all for the Penguins getting rid of guys to get a player they think can help them win this year. And the Wild, it doesn't appear are going to go anywhere. So why not get rid of Zucker, who is averaging $5.5 million a year to get to get some young talent in return. I do think Pittsburgh gave up a little bit. So quite a bit. So I think the Wild probably win this trade. But I do think both are winners in this trade. I love Jason Zucker was like my favorite Wild player. Now I'm not huge in hockey, but Zucker was my favorite Wild player. Because I've always liked Zucker. He had 33 goals in 17 and 18. I was just looking at Hockey Reference for Galchenyuk, hockeyreference.com for Galchenyuk and Zucker's stats. Zucker's a clearly better player, but Zucker had 33 goals in 17 and 18 and 31 assists for 64 points. He's dropped down steadily from that year, but Zucker's a solid player. And yesterday he scored 2 goals for Pittsburgh. So and you put Zucker with Malkin and Crosby. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with the Lions. What line he's going to be on, I didn't watch the game, but I know he scored 2 goals. But you put Zucker with those guys compared to what he's had with Minnesota, he's probably going to be even better. But the Wild are getting a lot in return. I wasn't at first when I heard it, I wasn't a huge advocate of it because I'm like, well, yeah, you might only get an 8 seed, but in hockey, an 8 seed can go all the way, And the way they've been playing lately, they had just won 3 in a row, and they're only like 3 points back of the 8 seed. I'm like, I don't know if you really be needing to trade away. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, well, you can still make it without Zucker. He hasn't been that great for you this year anyways, and you're getting a lot in return. Like Galchenyuk's been on, I think this is 3rd team now in 4 years, but he's a productive player. He's been bad this year, but he had 19 goals and 32 assists for 51 points, I believe, in 17-18. He led the Coyotes in goals, I think, last year. And that Cale Addison is a first-round pick. He could be really good. So I like the trade, and the Wild are getting rid of some money in Zucker. Although Galchenyuk, I think, pretty much matches it, so that might not matter. But I like the trade better for the Wild, but I think both teams are winners.
I think so too. I think Pittsburgh did give up a little bit too much. Personally, obviously these are some guys that have played. Obviously, they've had NHL experience. Zucker obviously has been around a little bit too. A lot of times with players that are struggling, sometimes a change of scenery is big time. You know, you've been in a place for a while, you're kind of in a rut, not really doing good things, and then you get traded elsewhere. You see it all the time in sports, is that the players now start to go off. They get out of a slump, they start to play better, new styles, new different types of hockey here for Zucker now. So like you mentioned, already 2 goals in his first game with Pittsburgh there. I think that's big time. So I think that'll be good for Pittsburgh now that he's in a new place.
Yeah. Obviously, small sample size. I think that was actually his second game at Pittsburgh, but he's got 2 goals,
Okay.
2 games with him. He scored 2 goals yesterday. I mean, obviously, small sample size, but so far it looks like it's going well for them. Like you mentioned, sometimes the striking player, they just need a new place. Totally agree. Sometimes it's just the fact that it's a fresh start and then they play better. But for one, I think it lights the fire under them. They want to prove themselves, so that helps. You got different, hockey and basketball are the 2 sports where chemistry is huge. Hockey is probably the biggest. So maybe it just didn't have good chemistry in one place. Now you can try to form it with other people. And like I said, Crosby and Malkin, they're way better than anybody Wild have offensively. So, I mean, Zucker, it's going to be easier for you to play better when you got guys like that around you. So.
The Wild also still in the news fired their head coach Bruce Boudreau. He's been around. He was with the Wild for a little bit. Obviously, spent some time with Anaheim as well too. A guy that's been around the league for a long time now. Wild, they're a few points out of a playoff position. Personally, yeah, you're a few points out of a playoff position, but it's one of those things where, didn't do anything last season, haven't really been competitive for a couple of years. The Wild are normally a team that we're competing for a top spot in that extremely tough Central Division there. And now they've definitely fallen off a lot. Obviously, some not very good contracts and players getting older doesn't help out with that much at all. So Boudreau, obviously, him getting fired from the Wild, as a Wild fan, and maybe I don't know if you've heard more stuff out there since you live out there, what's kind of the general reaction about this?
To be honest, I haven't heard many reactions about it yet. I'm sure on Monday and Tuesday when I see some of my Wild buddies, I'll know. But I haven't really heard the local media's take on it yet. But I'm for one not a huge fan of this. The more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it. But overall, I don't really agree with it. I know you're sitting 11th right now, and you haven't really gone anywhere in the playoffs with Boudreau, but you didn't before him either. It's not necessarily his fault. Boudreau's gone. The one thing on Boudreau is he hasn't had the playoff success, but he's been in Anaheim, Washington, the Wild. He's had regular season success. He's had some good teams, so I think he's a good coach. I'm okay with firing him at the end of the year, maybe, but I just think they should have seen the year through, because in hockey, all you need to do is make the playoffs, and you get a chance. And they're only 3 points out right now. They're in 11th, but they're only 3 points out of 8, and they were playing good. So I mean, I don't know what it's telling your players right now by firing him, and I'm not a huge fan of it, because his first year with the Wild was one of the better regular seasons the Wild have ever had. And yeah, they haven't had this success in the playoffs, but that's not because of the coach. That's because they don't have that one guy you can just give it to, like a Crosby, Ovechkin, Kane, McKinnon, that can just get the job done. The problem the Wild have always had is they haven't had that one really good forward, and I truly think that's their problem, not coaching. And I don't think firing Boudreau right now is the answer. I mean, maybe if they seen the season through and signed him fired him at the end of the offseason, I'd be okay with it. But I don't really agree with this right now. I really don't.
Maybe they fired him because the Avalanche beat the Wild a few days ago. What do you think about that?
David Farmer was warning me. He was like, Jordan's going to get back to you because what I said to you a while back with the Wild beat the Avalanche. But no, I don't think that's – well, I don't know. If they beat the Avalanche, I bet he would. Honestly, if they beat the Avalanche on 4 in a row, I don't think they would have fired him then. I mean, how can you?
Yeah. Well, Avalanche beat the Wild 3-2. That was a good game there.
The Avalanche are now, 2 points out of the first spot? But
yeah, we're fighting for a top seed in the West.
They played one less game than the 1 seed, so
we're fighting for a top seed in the West, where the Wild are just fired their coach and fighting just to stay at 500.
I do think it's weird that they fired him now, though, rather than last week. They just won 3 in a row before losing and then they lost to a very good team in the Avalanche, which is totally understandable. So I don't know why they fired him now and not last week.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, I'm not letting you get your fun with the Avalanche. I'm just gonna.
You're not gonna. I'm not getting to you at all with that.
Nope. I'm just gonna ignore it.
All right. Well, Avalanche will be hopefully competing for their third Stanley Cup ring this year, where the Wild were still gonna miss out from still getting their first. So
all right, there you got me.
Point that one out there.
How many World Series the Rockies got?
Oh, okay. How many Super Bowls do the Vikings have?
Well, you're not even a Bronco fan, so.
No, I'm a Dolphins fan, but we've still won.
I suppose you got the perfect season.
Oh man.
By the way, why are you not a Colorado Buffaloes fan?
Kind of well, sorry folks, if we're having a little sidetrack here from hockey, but no, I mean, I'm a Florida Gators fan. When I was younger, I really liked Tim Tebow. I mean, I still do. Really liked Tim Tebow. I loved watching him play with the Gators, and obviously loved what he stood for as well too, as far as off the field stuff. And I just kind of followed the Gators, and then over time, I follow all things Gators. So the Gators are my team.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm a big Tebow guy too. I was just wondering because Buffaloes are actually decent this year in basketball. I think they're ranked like 18 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh well. So some more NHL news. Darnell Nurse signs a 2-year extension with the Edmonton Oilers. This is good for the Oilers. Obviously, this guy's a solid player for them. A big guy out there who's going to throw some bodies around. I like this for Edmonton. What's your opinion on this?
I didn't see what the finances was in the deal. What was the year in the?
I did not get the money part. I just 2-year.
Okay, maybe that's. I couldn't find it either, so maybe they're not sure yet. But I say it's a great move. You got one of the best players in hockey in Connor McDavid, forward, and then you got Nurse defense for your defenders. So you got defense and offense covered there with a main player. Nurse is 25, McDavid's young. I love this. I love this signing. You got a very bright future with those two.
And then obviously going on the Connor McDavid thing, now he is out 2 weeks with looks like a lower body injury or something along those lines. For Edmonton, it's a team that obviously has, that is their guy. McDavid is the guy they kind of roll with McDavid. And, I will say this season it is a little bit different because Leon Draisaitl is competing for the Art Ross Trophy this season, which is the most points. So he's balling out this year for Edmonton. So I think they'll be a little bit okay. But if you can have that 1-2 punch of McDavid and Draisaitl, I think that is a scary thing for most teams. And now for a couple weeks, sounds like McDavid is going to be out. So as far as the Edmonton Oilers go with this, how much are they going to miss McDavid, or do you think they'll miss him at all?
I mean, they'll obviously miss him because it's Connor McDavid,
Right.
But to your point, I don't think they'll miss that much. We just talked about Nurse. Nurse is great, but he's a defenseman. It's not like he's going to be able to make up for the goals McDavid scores. But Draisaitl can. And you still make up for McDavid's goals because you're the fifth spot, and that's with McDavid's goals and Draisaitl's. But with Draisaitl there, it definitely is going to be able to help them overcome this. If he weren't there and you need somebody, you can't just replace McDavid's production.
No.
And if they were a team built off a strong defense in McDavid, then they'd be really in trouble. But considering they have other guys there to score, they're all right. It's obviously going to be a big thing, though, because they're fifth right now in the West, but they're only 3 points up on 9 because the West is really crammed down there. So if you lose a couple games here and there because you don't have McDavid, you could fall right out of the playoffs. But like you said, considering hopefully for their sake it's not too long and you got Draisaitl there, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah. I'm not too worried. Obviously, not having McDavid on the ice, don't get us wrong. We're not saying that that's a good thing by any means. But, obviously not having him out there is going to suck for sure. So that's all the topics we have to discuss. Nick, is there anything else that you would like to bring up at all?
No, I just like to say, Ron Manfred, you better figure it out, man.
Yeah,
better figure it out because
you and a bunch of other people.
You are not making me a very happy man right now.
Nope. Nope. I guess the only thing I have to bring up too is that tomorrow I'll be playing basketball against Nick. So look for a video of me dunking off of his fro and slamming on him tomorrow. So.
Yeah, that's fake news. I'm gonna put back slam right in your face, Dorton.
No, you're not. I'll undercut you before that happens.
Oh, I see how it is.
I'll play dirty, man. I don't care. I'll be that
enforcer out there.
Just call me Matt Cook. I'll go out there and start playing dirty.
Ooh, playing dirty. You're like Houston Astros, you little cheater.
Yeah, well, I'm not cheating. I'm telling you what I'm going to be doing, and that's, I'm just going to hurt you. I'm going to play to injure.
All right, you're like
Matt Cook.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see. I'm going to be so fast you won't even know what happened, Dorton.
We'll have a update when we record next. Let y'all know what happened. But
stat line: Nick Duckett 1 dunk over Dorton. Dorton 1 ejection.
Oh man. Nonetheless, yeah. Nonetheless, so that's all the stuff that we have to talk about. Definitely give us a share. Personally, Nick, I don't know about you. I think this is one of my favorite episodes I think we've recorded. It was
mine too. I was actually thinking that. For one, I love talking MLB, and there were some good topics today. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Oh, by the way, your DC Defenders are up 12-0 right now.
Of course, we're the Defenders, baby. Cardell Jones. Those Ohio State boys know how to ball. Dwayne Haskins, Cardell Jones.
Though. Viper up.
Yeah, that didn't fare too well for you last week, eh?
Yeah, well, we're not giving up. They're running the table.
Hey, man, I've been a Defenders fan since day one, so calm down.
Since last Tuesday.
Day one. But nonetheless, like I said, all topics we have to talk about. If you like what you heard, definitely give us a follow, give us a like, share. If you didn't like something, certainly let us know. We'll try and get better for the next time for you as well, too. You can follow us on Twitter. You can find myself at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D.
Defenders pick 6. Sorry, Dorton. I just had to throw that in there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And that is not Nick Duckett's Twitter handle. It's just going to be at Duckett or Doetkott. It should be. But anyways, thank you for listening. Definitely, like I said, give us a share, give us a follow, this, that, and the other. Definitely give us a share. But that is all the topics we have to talk about today. For myself, Lucas Dorton, and for Nick Duckett, we are out.